All right, so one of the biggest challenges companies always face is and it's one of the most important pieces of a company, is how to really build and manage a culture. And it's really difficult. And the bigger you get, the harder it becomes, and that always is a continual challenge. And it's really about how do you balance work and play. Both are important. Both are, one is a lot of fun, one should be fun. One makes money, one sometimes could make money. But really where it comes down to is it is important to have a little bit of both, because it's how you can continue to grow, and it's how you can continue to have fun, and it's how you can continue to do great work. And really what this came to remind me of, it's, based on a couple of conversations that we've had the last couple weeks, is fartlek training, which is actually Swedish for speed play. And if you know at all with running what fartlek training is, and probably Ben's giggling in the back, but it's really about the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise. So aerobic is when you are kind of consistently jogging and can use only breathing as your fuel, and your outputs are carbon dioxide and water, so sweat. Where anaerobic is when you go above what your oxygen levels can handle, and it starts building and it starts using glycogen and other things inside your body, and the outputs of that are carbon dioxide, sweat, but also lactic acid. And this is why when you are working really hard and you start getting kind of dead legs, that's the lactic acid that's building up. And so when it comes to when you look at intensity versus time, and so if you've got this timeline here, and intensity of 0 to 5, if your aerobic level of how hard can you push yourself before you start burning glycogen is at a 2, for example, then in aerobic exercise you've got a little bit of a warm-up period, and then you're going to hold this, maintain it, and then a cool-down period. And so what you really do is kind of slow and steady. Where on anaerobic, when you've got intensity versus time, and you have the same scale, if once again your level is at a 2, what you do here is you have a quick warm-up period, but then you take yourself above your aerobic level and then come back down. And then you take yourself above and you go back down. And you go back up, and then you have a cool-down period. And so where this comes into play is this is kind of slow and steady, and this is you sprint and then you walk. You sprint and then you walk. And this is where anaerobic versus aerobic comes in. And what's important to kind of bring it into parallel is kind of the type of work you can do in this situation, and the type of results that you're going to see from a fitness level. So over time, when you exercise aerobically, what you're trying to do is expand the amount of time that you can keep that steady pace up. So what you're hoping to do is when you're training, you first start out, you can do a mile, then 2 miles, and 5 miles, and then hopefully over time you can get to 10, 13, if you're trying to do a marathon, 26. Where this comes into play, so you can increase your time, when anaerobic comes in, is you're trying to increase the amount of time that you can have a high intensity level, but you're also trying to raise your aerobic level so you can raise how hard you can go for how long. So then instead of, when you train this at a high level anaerobically, when you come back down and rest, over time you hope that you can build your anaerobic levels where you can go up to maybe a 4, and then even maybe up to a 5. And so what you're trying to do here is increase your time of how far and how fast you can go, but you're also trying to increase your intensity. Where the parallel really comes in to works from a work standpoint is where what that allows you to do. So when you're operating in this level, you can do pretty awesome things for a short period of time, but if you stay up at this level, you start getting dead legs, you start getting lactic acid built up, and then you wear out and you burn out. And so when you think about it from a perspective of, when we talked about, where the growth comes from, this was, we said, is kind of where you stress your system, this is where you grow, and this is where you're kind of apathetic. The other way you can look at it is uncomfortable, comfortable, and kind of recharging. And so in this instance with aerobic, you kind of do this, is kind of you're operating within your zone the whole time, where with anaerobic, you're kind of starting at the same place, but then you're going to go out of your zone and come back down. You're going to end in the same point, but you've got these peaks that kind of push you beyond your comfort zone, and then you've also got some of these troughs that are in kind of recharge mode. So when it comes down to work versus play, this is kind of, in this instance in your aerobic level, this is when it's a consistent jog. When you're going here, you've got a sprint and a walk, right? And so where this comes back from a cultural standpoint is, what's funny is last week we had several people come in, like we do every week, and in different instances, we as a company, at one point we're up here, and at one point we're down here. Same company, same week. One of them said, wow, you guys, it's really quiet here. You guys are working really hard. And then somebody else comes in and says, man, you guys got a nice pace. This is a lot of fun. You guys are having a lot of fun. The same week, same company, same stuff. But really what it comes down to is if they walked in during a sprint phase or a walk phase. And that's what's really important, is when you look at it from this perspective, in a creative business, so when you're trying to boost creativity, where do you think the most creative out-of-the-box things happen? Where do you think you can push yourself beyond your bounds? Where do you think the kind of the new, the cool stuff happens? It happens up here, right? It happens when you're pushing yourself a little bit past what you're capable of. But the other side of that coin is, where do you think people are most productive? The productivity standpoint, that happens in this zone here. That's where you're most productive. So to try to find the right balance of work and play really comes down to what kind of company do you have. Do you have a company that needs to come up with creative, out-of-the-box ideas that push the boundaries of things? Or do you have a company that is really just focused on how much stuff can you grind out, how much stuff can you get done? Because those are two different things. And so when you're working on that balance of how much work, or how much creative and how much productivity, that's where you're going to find more accurately where that balance of work and play comes in. So if someone walks in and headphones are on, everyone's silent, everyone's behind closed doors in the conference rooms, that means we're sprinting. That means we're getting a lot of stuff done in a really high level way. Whereas if they come in and we're shooting hoops in basketball, or we're around the island in the kitchen pouring bush bombs, that's a recharge moment. And so it's important, both as a person and as a company, to understand this balance and be able to implement that into your daily, weekly, and monthly training regimen. Because what ends up happening over time is, as you increase your aerobic levels, so if here now your aerobic levels are here and now your aerobic levels are here, what this allows you to do is now get to this fifth gear that I've talked with a lot of you guys about, is that there's some people have the capacity to just put it into an extra gear that others don't have, from a productivity standpoint and a creativity standpoint, that you can just be much more prolific and much more, get much more amazing stuff done. And that comes with the ability to get into this fifth gear, which only comes over time of being able to build your aerobic levels with anaerobic training. And so what I want you to keep in mind is on a week-to-week basis, on a day-to-day basis, keep this kind of pattern in mind and understand what it is. And when you are on the third floor and there's people gathering around the island having drinks or just kind of shooting the shit, understand that this is a recharge moment, and don't get frustrated by, if it's a little bit distracting. Or if someone's shooting hoops down here and you're on the first floor, understand that that's a recharge moment for them, and understand what it is, and don't get as frustrated by it unless the basketball hits your computer and knocks it off your desk. Then you can be a little frustrated. But it's really important to kind of keep that in mind, because this is a long-term race. So we don't want you to burn out by trying to stay at this upper level for too long, but then we also don't want you to just jog the whole time and stay slow and steady, because then that means no amazingly creative things are going to come from it. And so if you can keep this in mind and understand it and train this way, you're going to be able to combine the creativity with the productivity and really keep that as a balance. And so what I would like to ask the listeners that are watching at home is, how do you and how do your company balance this work and play? What are the things that you've done within your company? What are the things that how have you had the scale tilt one way or the other too far, and what have you guys done to fix that?